Well, the government will send the FCRA Amendment Bill to the JPC, or the Joint Parliamentary Committee. Following strong opposition from the Congress party and pressure from the DMK, the government has decided to send the FCRA Bill to the Joint Parliamentary Committee, where it will be further discussed and finalized before being brought back to the Parliament. It is noteworthy that the Christian community has been deeply unhappy with the FCRA Amendment Bill. However, the government maintains that the bill's provisions will not apply to any one religion. They will apply equally to all, whether it be the Golden Temple in Amritsar, a Hindu religious site, or a Christian site. However, due to a lack of consensus on the provisions of the FCRA Amendment Bill, the bill has now been sent to the JPC. Let me go across to my colleague Atul Ranjan, who has more information on this front. Atul, what more could you tell us about this new development that is coming to the fore, that the FCRA Amendment Bill has now been sent to the JPC?
Well, the government has agreed to send the FCRA Amendment Bill to the JPC, and this comes after a strong opposition from the government because, the Congress party or the DMK or other political parties, they were quite, adamant to send the JPC, send the FCRA Amendment Bill to the JPC. And now what we are given to understand is that, at the JPC, it will further discuss and finalize before again being brought back to the Parliament. Now, this quite notable there, right since the bill was introduced, we saw that Christian community as well, quite vocal about their opposition, and they, disagreed with the government provision that, this bill could, take away the authority, and they had to manage over, all those religious bodies that they were, having control over. In fact, however, the government did, give a reply on that, and said that this particular provision would not just apply to Christian bodies, but in fact also to other bodies like Golden Temple as well as Hindu religious sites as well. But clearly, critics and the domestic opposition, argued that the bill gives the state too much power to squeeze or target non-governmental organizations, and particularly those holding views different from the political parties, and that is what we have seen that the government has finally, however, agreed to send the bill to the JPC.
Atul, I request you to please stay on with us as we track some other news. Well, the government has now summoned outgoing Air India CEO Campbell Winsell over the Phuket Delhi flight incident, and the Air India A320 operating flight AI 2379 encountered severe turbulence on August 4 and suffered a sudden loss of around 300 feet in altitude. The incident has left multiple passengers and crew members injured and has triggered a detailed safety investigation. The aircraft's flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder have also been secured as part of the probe. The aircraft manufacturer Airbus and France's Aviation Accident Investigation Agency, or the BEA, are also assisting the investigation. The government's summoning of the outgoing Air India CEO comes as authorities are seeking answers over the entire incident and the airplane's safety response to it as well. Let me go across to Atul for more on this. Atul, if you can give us some more details. We are getting news that the outgoing CEO of Air India has now been summoned over this incident.
Well, yes, a team meeting is underway at the Udan Bhavan in New Delhi, where the outgoing Air India CEO and MD, Campbell Wilson, he has been summoned by the ministry, where we are also learning is that members of the DPCA as well as those of AAIB, the Air Traffic Accident Investigation Bureau, which has now been summoned, which has now been in fact handed over the investigation of the whole Air India case. They are have conducted this crucial meeting with the Air India CEO, where obviously some of the explanations would be asked from the Air India regarding the incident as well as the conduct of the pilot. Remember, the captain of the pilot is also under the scanner regarding the initial reports of the dope test coming positive. However, a confirmatory test is underway and the report of the same is still pending. But what was given to understand is that, apart from that particular matter, there's also a different matter regarding the possible hydraulic failure that the aircraft suffered during its flight to New Delhi. Now, what we're given to understand is that there are two different lines of investigation regarding this matter. Number one being the captain's dope test. Number two, which is entirely different, is a possible technical failure or a possible hydraulic failure. And that is why what we're seeing is that, following the International Civil Aviation Organization's clauses, now we see that the OEM, the Airbus of the France, as well as the France's, the aircraft accident investigation bodies, they too have been involved with this whole investigation. And now we are given to understand that a team of experts are already on their way to India from Airbus, and they will also be advising AAIB when it comes to investigation on this whole front. So, crucial meeting is underway right now, where all of these aspects will be discussed. And what is also quite important is the fact that initially, if you see the communication from Air India or from the Air India, particularly, it was the word that was mentioned. The key word was turbulence. But now later on, we see that the communication from the Air India as well as from the ministry clearly mentions that the whole in fact the scenario is something about a rapid decline in the altitude of the aircraft. So clearly the initial report of turbulence, we have totally veered away from that, and now what we're talking about is a possible hydraulic failure, technical failure that led to sort of decline in the altitude and whole situation developed. So all those aspects are being discussed, and those will be obviously investigated further.
Atul, I'll request you to stay on with us.